Hello again. This is Lori and Lawrence. Unfortunately, we can't see Lawrence at the moment because he's still trying to figure out his webcam, but welcome. And we're glad to have you back with us again. And I'm going to start the show a little bit different this time and see if this won't bring some people up to date, some new people that have new subscribers and new people that have joined along with the show now that we're doing this. Turn my mic up a little bit more. Now that we're doing this different format with regards to just Lawrence and I again, like we started months ago. So I'm going to just take a minute. There's Lawrence with his webcam. It's going all over the place. So.
Oh, right. That's good. Got it going now.
Oh, look at you. Okay. Now, if you just hold it steady, you'll be in great shape.
Okay.
Okay. So, hi, Lawrence.
Yeah, hi, Lawrence.
I want to do something very briefly, just for a minute, for a few minutes, to get the new people that haven't, been watching us for months and months, and especially with the new format. I feel like maybe it would be a good time to reintroduce ourselves for a moment and just sort of bring people up to date on where we started and where we've been and how far we've come in the months that we got this thing started. We started the show back last year, last quarter of last year, and it was called This Week in Flat Earth. And it was Lawrence and I, and then we started adding guests, and then we went into a panel type format and added more people and ended up with 4. And it was fun while it lasted, but it was a little too much strain for Lawrence and I to continue that format with everybody trying to talk over each other. And we did have some sort of dissension that didn't really work out well. So we started over, and now we're called Free Our Flat Earth. And it's just Lawrence and I, and we will be having guests from time to time, those who we think will add another dimension to the show, but it will just be Lawrence and I from here on out. I started working on my research on Flat Earth 11 months ago, and I started by one of the things that I usually do when I'm excited about something new is I start a Facebook group and add my friends and start talking about whatever it is. I've been involved in truthing and conspiracy research for several years, close to 10 now. So when I heard about Flat Earth, of course, I laughed just like everybody else does. And then I heard about it again and again. And so I finally started doing the research like so many other people. And it's been a continuing journey pretty much every day for the last 11 months. Once you get involved in this, it's pretty hard to stop unless you just stop cold turkey and forget about it. Because once you get started, it's a continuous rabbit hole, as all of you, I'm sure, know by now. But one of the things that happened along the way was I met Lawrence online, and we became Facebook friends, and we became sort of, groupies in the groups. And before you know it, Lawrence started posting some things that started to annoy me, which were things like, oh, this map doesn't work, and this model doesn't work, and we've been lied to, and this is probably some kind of a psyop to get us to look stupid. And so, that kind of ticked me off because I was head over heels in love with my new Flat Earth movement and learning everything that I could. And one of the things I like to do is I like to become an expert at whatever it is my hobby research is about. And I was well on my way, and I was becoming an expert at the wrong model of what the Flat Earth looks like. Or should be looking like. So Lawrence contacted me and said, let's do a show. And we decided to pursue trying to figure out what's wrong with the AE map that everybody's using, the little circle map with the white ring of ice around the outside and the sun and the moon going around in circles. And we decided to pursue what's wrong with it. And as we did that, we feel very, very confident that we have at least eliminated the AE map as the way the world is laid out. And you can go back and watch past shows to see our evolving research on that. So today, Lawrence and I are going to take a little different track, and he's been working for weeks now on taking the measurements of flights between cities and the actual distances and plotting them out on different maps, different projections of maps to see which one works the best and is the most realistic, because they can only lie so much or give us so much of a degree of disinformation with regards to the length of these flights and how long they take to fly from A to B, and including or with or without layovers and so on, because people can check it. I mean, people know, they got watches and clocks and things. I mean, those really exist. So without a whole lot of further ado, I want Lawrence to brief the same thing that I just did, say where he came from and how we got to where we are right now today. And then we're going to proceed with showing you the newest research that Lawrence has been doing, as well as some of the stuff I've been working on. So take it away, Lawrence.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago, well, just over 2 years ago, about Christmas, 3 Christmases ago. And for me, it wasn't somebody saying, hey, did you know the Earth is flat? It was just a thought that came into my head. I think I'd recently, at that time, been looking at nuclear weapons being a hoax. You just think, what else could there be? And flat Earth came into my head, and half an hour later, I was a flat earther, and of course, everybody thought I was nuts. And a few months later, I did my first live presentation. It was filmed, but I was wandering around with a microphone and chatting to people. I got an entire audience of Globers, and but it went down very well. And but they couldn't make the movie of it because it was too disjointed. So that was 2 years ago, and then from then I was on Facebook all the time. My pages were full of flat Earth stuff. Some of it wrong, obviously, with hindsight. And I spammed Facebook for probably 6 months. I got tired of it in the end. I walked away from it and thought, I'm just going to get off Facebook for 3 months and do something else. And then I came back, and lo and behold, somebody set up a Facebook page for Flat Earth. It's one of the people I've been talking to, who thought I was nuts. He'd set up a Flat Earth Facebook page, and they all snowballed after that. And now there's hundreds of flat Earth variations out there, and then all these big names, ones you consider big names now, the ones who get a lot of attention, they all came in, and it was going great guns. And I went and did another talk, and I even had a model made. Well, for my first talk, actually, I had a model made of the AE map, showing people how it worked. But then I saw a video by Free Energy saying the square flat Earth, and I thought, okay, I'll have a look at it. And it seemed to make sense, especially with the sundials, straight line, indicating the sun's moving in a straight line. And people thought I was nuts with that because everybody had bought into the AE map and stuff. And, I thought about it for a few months and then realized that it was right. And I thought, well, everybody's singing to the wrong hymn sheet. So I contacted you to see if you wanted to do a weekly show to, I think we're just going to call it A Week in Flat Earth, but, it's always been about sorting out the lies and trying to find out the truth in flat Earth. And I've done more research since the start of the show. Right? It's just, before I was just looking at what other people had put, but I've done my own independent research. I've actually got a map that I've drawn myself. There's no continents on it, but you've got the shape of the map, and we've got, over 20 major cities. And I'll show you that in a minute, but it's probably a map you've never seen before. It's a bit of a work of art for me, because it took about 2 days to put it all together, of having to get longitudes and latitudes of all these places and plot them out on this huge piece of graph paper I've got. But it's looking good, and that's where we are now. What I think we have this evening is probably the nearest thing you're going to have to the correct map. I actually got this one printed this week, like I did last week. So last week we got the sinusoidal, and funnily enough, all the distance fitted. I looked at the overall distances of all the routes and the overall official distances, and it was less than 1% out. But I still wasn't happy with it, because in the higher regions and the lower latitudes, the distances across weren't quite right. So I thought I need to squeeze it in a bit more, or take out the curvy bits and make it straight. So I got up the next day after last week's show, and longitude and latitude came in, and I think, well, why is there twice as many longitudes as latitudes? So I'm thinking, you've heard people saying the Earth is twice as big one way as the other. So I went on one of the longitude latitude calculators, and I got the measurements at various latitudes and plotted it all out, and lo and behold, we've got this perfect diamond shape. So then I started searching for a diamond shaped map, and it was the first one that came up, which was the Calignum map, and I got this copy this week in the post. You can see that, and I tried to work on it like last week's, but it's a bit blurred. The copy hasn't come out very well, and it's not big enough. I got it that big so I could show you on the screen, but I couldn't work on it with any accuracy, because the markers that I put on would be like 500 miles across when you take the scale into account. So if I didn't stick them down very, very accurately, the distances aren't going to come out. So I thought, shit, what am I going to do? And a few weeks before, I'd ordered this technical drawing draft paper. It's graph paper. Very expensive, because I was thinking, I'm going to try and draw out the airports, and I started off with the regular longitude and latitude, and it didn't work. So now I've got the new type of longitude and latitude, and it does work. So I'm going to cover that today. I think I mentioned to you earlier, Laurie, today I think I solved a conundrum. You can tell them about it if you want, which was about the flight from Taiwan to Los Angeles that got diverted to Anchorage, and everybody was pointing to the AE map saying, well, that's obvious, yeah. If they were using the right map, it was obvious that Anchorage was the correct place. So did you pick up that post I made today? Have you got a copy of the map and stuff?
Yeah.
Do you want to run past that while I just get myself a coffee?
Sure.
You know the story on that.
And let me explain something to you about webcams. You're looking at your laptop camera like you used to, and you're not presenting to the webcam. So look at the little camera on the webcam, and then that's where we'll see you. Okay, that's better. That's a little more personal. Awesome. Okay. You're a technical genius in many different directions, but this kind of tech is a little new for you. But
I've only got.
Congratulate you. Oh, whoa! I want to congratulate you, huge, for having. Please, thank you, God, gotten some headphones, because I'm hoping that the feedback now will dissipate.
Yeah.
So
well, that's good.
You rocked that one. All right. So, what am I presenting again?
You're going to tell me a little bit of research as a result of doing the map to debunk the people who were saying the flight that was diverted to Anchorage for the woman who had a baby on the flight from Taiwan to Los Angeles.
Oh gosh, I didn't get that one.
Well, you comment. Okay, well, I can show it. You won't have to show it.
If you can show that one, I've got the rest.
Hang on, let's see if I can share the screen. There we go. Screen share. There we go. There we go. Entire screen. Okay. Let me just get the image. Oh, it's brought up
Yeah,
hundreds
you
of
kind of
stuff.
need to get the image first and
All right,
stop
let
sharing.
me get the image.
Yeah, there you
It's
go.
Taiwan baby. Here we go. Has this come up now?
Yes, it's there.
All right. So this is the flight. It's about 11 and a half hours in flight. I checked the flight. It's a non-stop, obviously. It's got to go over the North Pacific. And it's 11 and a half hour flight, and it's about 6,800 miles. Now, the woman actually went into labor. Her waters burst 6 hours into the flight. So it was just over halfway. So if you see that bit down the middle, that's the international date line. So the little red arrow, little red cross is where Anchorage is. So at the point where the woman was obviously going to be giving birth on the plane, they decided to fly to Anchorage. And you can see quite clearly on this map that the route from where the plane was at that time, the nearest place is going to be and not Los Angeles. Obviously, on this map, you're looking at a Great Circle route. And my evidence from doing over the past few days is that they are flying these Great Circle routes, and they're flying farther than they need to, because this is showing us 6,800 miles here. Well, that'll be the route over that. The actual, I haven't got the figures in front of me, but the actual route there is, it's probably about 1,000 miles less. Sorry, that's got magnified, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. So anyway, that is a logical explanation for why they actually went there, because it was the nearest place. So yeah. So
well, that was one of the things that we hadn't taken into consideration when we were first plotting these, or you weren't. And once we'd left the AE map, the configuration of the way the continents are laid out went back to the way they were before, by looking at a regular Mercator map or a square map that we've become accustomed to looking at with timeanddate.com and other presentation maps that show a 2D flat plane for the purpose of showing routes and ship routes and plane routes and all that stuff. So when we were asked about the Great Circle route by a friend who had a problem with us months ago, we kind of almost had a falling out, or you two did, about the square map direction that you started to go in. And she was very much of an AE map believer, and the map and the model with the circular sun and the circular moon. So when we went square, it didn't sit well with her. One of the reasons was because she had a lot of friends that were pilots and had talked about the Great Circular route, and that most of these long distance plane flights are based on what they call the Great Circle route. And we have no explanation for why they fly that curved route, but they do. And maybe it's because the routes are designed by computer, by the airlines, and they're plotted into the computer, onboard computers for the what the heck do you call it when they fly autopilot? There we go. And so it was something that needed to be taken into consideration, because one of the main things that we've decided that we really have to follow is the observable evidence and the observable facts have to be considered when trying to come up with a map and a model that works for everybody, for everything. And no more excuses for why things don't work. No more, well, maybe planes are going 900 miles an hour in the South Hemiplane, and maybe they're picking up passengers on the way to so-and-so to get to so-and-so because it's more cost effective. Well, that's probably true, but again, if you keep making excuses and making what I commonly call ad hoc reverse engineered theories to make something work, then you're really not in pursuit of truth. You're in pursuit of making it work. So, okay, so that's something we're going to continue to explore over the coming weeks on looking at different maps and things, but it definitely answers to why we the northern hemisphere or hemiplane has different layout as far as the angles of the lines of longitude compared to the southern, but now with the more diamond-shaped sinusoidal or Collignon maps, now we're back to, now they're even again, which would happen on a globe. So before, on the AE map, they weren't not even. They were quite different. So, all right, Lawrence, go start with the, I guess.
Well, I think first I was wanting to prove the shape to the audience that it is a diamond shaped, and we can just cover some of those, those images I sent you, which cover the equator, the pole to pole, so you can see the distances, and also those other routes which show you that the distances across they get less when you get below the equator. So all the people who are on Rowbotham's agenda, they're all telling you that, oh yeah, but when you get south of the equator, the circles get bigger and bigger, but they don't. They come in at the same level as they do when you go north. So it's a symmetrical Earth. It's a diamond shape and it's symmetrical. So when you get south, but if you want to bring those images up, Laurie, that I sent you earlier,
okay,
then people can see those routes and see what they add up to.
Okay, so here's the first one. This is the flight distance from South Pole to North Pole one you wanted to start with.
So if you bring that one up.
Okay, should be presenting to everyone. Is it up?
No.
Okay.
It's a little tiny thing, but I can't see anything big.
Well, this is, okay, let me make sure what everybody's seeing here, because this is what I'm presenting. So let me stop and start again.
You just need to make it full screen.
That's as full screen as it gets.
It's just tiny. Nobody can see that.
Okay, well, I think what you're seeing and what they're seeing are two different things. So go ahead and explain it. Do you have a version of it you can look at? Because it should be full screen, as full as it can get from what you sent me.
Well, anyways, if you go on the longitude and latitude calculator and you type in the coordinates for the North Pole to the South Pole, it comes in at just under 12,500 miles, which is half the equator, which is just under 25,000 miles. So we've got the distance from pole to pole. I also did the equator, and it was something like 24,880. And I've sent you the flights, those 3 flights, which was Quito to Nairobi, Nairobi to Singapore, and then Singapore back over to Quito. And on that map, the flights they're going in virtually a straight line on that illustration, but they're coming to the 25,000 miles, so they're proving the distance across there. And then you move down south. I think.
Okay, so I'm showing 7976 miles from Quito to Nairobi.
Yeah,
okay.
I can't see that. I don't know whether anybody else can.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so let me open this one and do share screen. 3.
Yeah, it's come up tiny again, so I can't see it.
Okay, are you looking on your webcam thing, or are you looking on your laptop?
I'm looking at my laptop.
Oh, okay. I don't know why it's coming up tiny unless the image is just small, but it's full screen to me. So go ahead. It is 4636 miles from Nairobi, Kenya to Singapore.
Yeah, so if you add the three up, it comes to just short of 25,000 miles. But I don't know whether the viewers can see those images, but you can see the.
All right, let me ask somebody on Facebook and see if they're seeing it. All right. Okay, hold on just a second. Can you see images large enough? Okay, so.
Actually, no, I've got it. Yeah, I can see him now. I had to click on it, otherwise it's coming up small. So yeah, I can see it. But
okay.
yeah, so if you look at those images, you know, that
all
one
right,
there.
now I'm going to go to the third one, which was Singapore back to Quito.
Yeah, so if you look at that one, the last one, they put a curve in that for some reason, but it's on the same latitude. But that's the one that's going off the international date line. So they're going off the map and returning on the other side. So in real life, they do go all the way around, and flights do go east to west and west to east. So how would you explain that other than, you know, portals?
Well, there's two ways to explain it, and you know, whether anybody likes it or not, whether anybody believes that the earth was flooded or God parted the Red Sea or God stopped the sun for a full day while a battle went on in the Bible, either there is an invisible to us portal, veil, way to cross from east to west across the Pacific Ocean, or it's also a possibility that the whole thing is like a continuous Mobius strip, and we have seen evidence of that we made fun of when we first started looking at this, when we went to Google Maps and to Google Earth, and when you panned back from the Mercator size map, it was like a wallpaper. It just repeated and repeated and repeated, and we saw that. And I've seen it again since you said it's been taken down or you haven't found it again. I have found it, Lawrence, and it does do a repeat.
Oh, right. So,
it's just like a roll of wallpaper where the pattern repeats, and you know, as far as the roll of wallpaper goes, you roll it out and it's repeat, repeat, repeat. And as a matter of fact, I was talking to somebody the other day and I said, well, you know, heck, maybe that's why we can't time travel to the past. Everybody's talked about it. You know, it's been a sci-fi thing for my whole life and no telling how long. And maybe once you go past a certain point of time, you can't go back. It's gone. It's erased. It's gone. So, you know, people have been looking into the Mandela effect. People have been looking into all kinds of things that are anomalies that are happening with historical events, historical memories. And Lawrence, good Lord. Okay, if you stop moving around now, that'd be awesome. And so the possibilities are there that you know, we're limiting our own minds to some fixed square that doesn't travel itself as far as from east to west, and maybe even from north to south. Maybe there's the same kind of portal from north to south. I don't know, but if all of the if all the measurements are correct and we're not in a circle, then we're back to the square. And we're going to have to learn to adapt to that to figure out how does it work. And if it sounds crazy, then so be it. It sounds crazy. The circle Earth sounded pretty crazy to me when I first heard it, and something didn't sit right about the circle sun moving around in a circle. That's for sure. So, and so at the end of the day, when you have, I'm going to go to one more of these flights to finish this part off. Number 5. This should be present to everyone. This is across the Southern Ocean, from Chile to what, Cape Town? Oh, sorry, I got your mic muted because every time you move around, it steals the camera.
Yeah, I'll say we've got Chile to Cape Town on this one, and then the next one we've got Cape Town to Sydney, and then Sydney back to Chile, and the distance there of those 3 is it's about well, it's those 3 added up. It's about 18,000 miles, whereas if it was the AE map, you'd be looking at over 30,000 miles.
Right.
But it's not. So I've got the map out now. Do you want me to show people the map, Laurie? This is my.
Go ahead. Let me stop.
I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. I'm going to turn my computer around.
Okay.
Because it's on here. I don't know whether people can see it. Hang on.
Well, you can move the computer or you can move the webcam, one or the other.
Well, we'll do something or other. Okay.
Kind of be a genius with all of this stuff before it's all over.
Put it wise. Hang on. It's a big map. Let's put that a bit. Oops. Let's have a look. The map. What are you looking at?
I'm so dizzy. Okay, hold on. I'm just so dizzy.
You tell me when you've got the map and I'll stand in that position, all right?
Okay.
Put me back on. Right.
Okay.
So, can you see the map now?
I see the map.
Okay, there's the map.
Try not to do it at too much of an angle. Try to go overhead and straight down on it. That way we can see it better. This is Lawrence's version of a PowerPoint presentation.
All right, so you can see the map. Is the map clear in the middle now?
Yeah, pretty much. Your laptop corner is in the way, but that's okay. You can move it over to the right. Okay.
All right, so that's the map.
All right.
It's twice as wide as it is. I've actually drawn this out and put all the lines of latitude in. Now, on a conventional map, the latitudes would go at 90-degree angles to each other. But on this one, the longitude lines go to a single point at the poles. And so I've used where the intersections of those for pinpointing where places are rather than the conventional one, because obviously it wouldn't work on a square map because you'd run out of longitude in places and you won't be able to find them on the map. So this is the same map effectively as the Calignan map from the 1800s. And the surprising thing is that if you look at the north-south, you can see the black lines. Can you see the stars and the black lines on there? Mm-hmm. I've got the names of the places, and there's a star pinpointing where the places are. And the ones going north-south are very accurate, to within 5%. Some of them are spot on. So Nuuk to Stanley, Tokyo to Sydney, Seattle to Santiago, Anchorage to Stanley. They're all very accurate. And the ones going east-west, so the ones right across the middle are spot on. And funny enough, all the ones from London are very accurate. One that's not as accurate as the last one is the London to Sydney. And on that one, it came spot on. But on this one, it's 9,200 miles instead of 10,005. But if you look at, you can show them later, the actual route the plane takes, it's one of those great circle routes, and it does a great big loop, which would probably explain why it's showing up as long.
Point back down, Lawrence.
Showing as longer.
Okay. Well, I have a question. I have a question right in the middle of that, and one of the things that should solve that is if they are, and we know they are, flying these what they call great circle routes, wouldn't that make up these miles? And
Oh yeah,
again, I'm not trying to make excuses, but
they would on
we've
some of the
been
routes. But
challenged to try to incorporate the Great Circle routes to the map because that's what they are actually plotting
yeah,
out. So
yeah, but you can't reverse engineer a great circle route to a straight line because it's different for every latitude. And when you start crossing, diagonally and things like that, I mean, the math on it, you can go on Wiki and type in great circle routes. It gives you all the math, how it's worked out. And in fact, they've got different formulas for doing it. But it's worse than rocket science. It's so complicated how they do it.
yeah, I'm going to show that in a second when you're done presenting this.
So these are straight line distances. So these are probably, as far as I'm concerned, these are the accurate distances. And if it's showing up as longer as a flight route, it's because they're doing one of these big upward curves. I mean, if you look at this map here, and you fly from Seattle to London, yeah. I don't know whether you can see Seattle. Can you see Seattle? Can you read any of these names on here?
If you hold the camera still, we might be able to focus, but you could point your finger at it, maybe.
I can't because I'm holding the laptop at the same time. Well, you know where Seattle is it's North America.
Right.
It's south of So to London, they're on very similar latitudes. Seattle's just a bit south of London. But if you look on the actual flight route, it's going up over Greenland to get to London. So obviously the route is going to take longer than it needs to.
Well, that's also the difference between, and this is something, again, you have to learn so many new things that you had no knowledge of before, like the difference between nautical miles and ground miles or surface miles, land miles. They are different. Yeah. And so I believe that, we have to verify what the actual miles are, or whether they're giving us nautical miles or land miles, surface miles, with these distances. And, I'm sure you have a camera. We'll have you take a picture of that map, and, a still picture so that we can put it up next time, or put it up on Facebook or wherever. And so people can actually look at it as a static map.
Well, anyway, it actually fits perfectly. So I've calculated all the distances across at the different latitudes using the calculator and the flights. And at 20 north, it drops from 24,880 to 19,350. At 40 north, it's down to 13,800. 50 north, it's down to 11,500. So where we are in the UK, the distance across the Earth is less than half than what it is at the equator. You move up to where Anchorage is, and it's only 9,600 miles across. You move up to 80 degrees north, 10 degrees off the North Pole, and it's only 2,764 miles across. But the scale on this map works absolutely spot on, to within a pencil width. It all fits perfectly. And all these routes with the red line, if you look at the black lines on this map, I don't know whether people have seen this on a full screen or not.
Yes, they are.
Well, all these black lines on the map, the furthest route out is London to Sydney, which is about 15% out. Most of them are within 5%, and I've got about 10 of the routes, and they fit exactly. So they were, let's say it was 6,000 miles to somewhere. It's coming to within 50 miles. Well, 50 miles on this map is the width of a pencil, so it's coming out spot on. And the average of all the routes compared to the official route is within 2%. So, the map's working accurate.
Once I show everybody this formula for these great circle routes, they'll quickly discover why that 2% is not a big deal.
Yeah, and I've got all the distances as well, but I've plotted 50 routes. There's 51 routes marked up on that map. And all of those 51 are within exact amount to the worst 15%, but the average is working out at within 2%. So, as far as I'm concerned, that is, as of today, is the best you're going to get. I know I said the best last week, but I had a brainstorm in the morning and came up with this new one. But the only thing that's missing off here is the land masses, so you'd have to draw them in. But I can put more cities on here. But when you've got enough cities on, you can probably draw a map around them. So
all right, let me show something here.
I'm just going to grab a coffee.
Am I presenting to everyone? Okay, here we go. This is the wiki page, for what it's worth, on the Great Circle navigation. At least, if nothing else, it's a starting point for people to understand the concept for how these guys plot the distances. And I'm going to have to go to the actual page so I can scroll. Okay. And this is, I'm hearing some feedback. I hate that. The Great Circle path may be found using spherical trigonometry. Well, we're all starting to understand spherical trigonometry because we've been using that for our entire time we've been flat earthers in order to show people where's the curvature, and it's the same sort of method that we've found for trying to figure out if we're looking out over the water and we're showing something across the water and how far away that object or land is. We use spherical trigonometry to determine how far below the curvature that object should be. And for the flat Earth, for the spherical Earth trigonometry, based on a 25,000 mile in circumference Earth, it is, as everyone has become accustomed to, the miles squared times 8 inches divided by 12 in order to get the feet. And so spherical trigonometry is being used to plot these routes, and you can see that if you have a mathematical handicap like I do, you look at all of this and your eyes sort of roll back in your head. So this isn't the kind of thing that everybody would be interested in, but we wanted to show you that it actually does exist as the way that they plot the formulas for the airlines to make the routes. So we're not making it up, and no, neither is anybody else, and it has to be addressed. So as the months have progressed, we have constantly been made fun of, which we're perfectly comfortable with, because one of the things that Lawrence and I agreed to from the very beginning is that we would have tough skin, and we wouldn't be we wouldn't get our feelings hurt or get mad or upset if someone calls us crazy, because we're quite used to that now as flat earthers in general. But we're doing a method that is most people aren't strong enough or confident enough to do, and that is we're letting you watch our research methods as we do them, and we're not afraid of being ridiculed, because if you understand the concept of brainstorming, you never know where an idea is going to come from. And one of the methods that I thought myself would be good would be for us to just do a sort of a stream of consciousness, straight out, just through the brain and out the mouth kind of conversation, because you wouldn't believe the kind of information that comes to me, I'm sure to many other flat earth video makers, from either comments on the YouTube channels, or I have a website called flatearthconspiracy.com, and people message me via there, and I have conversations with people who are constantly coming up with input and ideas to add to this research and to this direction. Some of it is don't go there because I went there and that didn't work, so blah, blah. And then others are, well, here's something just to add to the equation that has nothing to do with the map, but it has to do with the sun. And the sun is an integral part of how you're trying to figure this all out. So, that being said, there's I just received a letter from someone who said they found this a couple years ago in a forum, and it was, this is from Bill, and he says, "Thank you and Lawrence for fighting the co-opted flat earth movement. There's no point in reiterating that mess though, so I won't. Here is something that I found on Lunatic Outpost last year that I thought was very intriguing, that claims a flat earth with multiple suns to cover multiple zones. It isn't written very well, but it gives some food for thought, if one can give it any credibility at all." And the forum article is called "Pillow Talk After Banging an Airline Stewardess. She Revealed the Earth is Flat." So you never know where you're going to find information. And so I just went with it and I read it, and I said, the letter says, "I met her in Toronto. She flew in from Chicago, and we did what sometimes consenting adults do. And during the pillow talk, I asked her jokingly if there was a conspiracy by governments and airline companies to hide the shape of the Earth. And she immediately replied, 'The Earth is flat.' I found that very strange." She went on to say that most people are aware of this, but also propagate lies to keep this secret hidden. She mentioned that people on forums and internet are all in on the secret, but maintain the lie due to the financial insecurity they will face, and also fear of being placed on a government blacklist where you're constantly running into delays at airport borders, hospitals, being gang stalked and harassed by telemarketers, invading your privacy at home with pointless calls. I couldn't believe what I just heard. She kept mouthing that there are more than one sun. It's hard to read because it's written badly, as was said before. That there are multiple zones with multiple suns revolving over every zone. I was stunned, but more so was why she was telling me all this. I asked her to get into the details about the so-called multi-zones, each with a sun revolving over it. She said that when she was in Australia and other south of the equator countries, the sun crosses the skies in the same direction as in the northern hemisphere, which could not be true if the Earth was a sphere, because the southern hemisphere rotates clockwise, and sun would rise east and set west, but would cross the sky to left instead of the right. She said it was and neither true if there were just one sun on a flat Earth, as she was recalling the days a pilot she was dating had explained it to her. She also said that sometimes these pilots and stewardesses hitch rides with cargo planes to get home and fly through these zones, and they can actually see these suns as they fly from one zone to another. I asked, why don't the passengers see these suns? She said cargo planes don't fly people, commercial planes do, and it's all coordinated that when crossing two zones, the airplane is crossing one zone during the end of the day and entering the next zone when it's night, due to either a layover or a connecting flight. She said it's all really sophisticated how flights are logged to fly and the routes they take. I also asked if she's ever flown over the South Pole, and she replied there is no South Pole. And then he gives the link to the lunaticoutpost.com thread and says, perhaps you and Lawrence will find it useful, perhaps not. Anyway, I thought I would pass it along. Thank you, Bill. And you never know what out of that we may dredge up later to as a thing to answer a question or to marvel at or whatever. So interesting coming from a stewardess. Now, they do fly long hours and they do fly long routes. And so it's a food for thought thing, multiple suns. And that kind of goes along with what I said a few weeks ago. And, again, I was laughed at and people think I'm crazy, but, we have no way of knowing whether the sun is a physical object or whether it is a concentration of light coming through from the outside into a pinpoint. People have marveled over the last couple years, I've noticed that this color of the sun has actually changed color somewhat and has gone from a more yellow sun to a whiter sun. I've also noticed that many times, almost every time you take a photo of the sun with the camera, you get these star-shaped rays coming out from it. And they either are rays that are six-pointed, like a hexagon, or eight-pointed, like an octagon. And I'm sure you've noticed it many times on your own film, your own cameras, pictures. And so all of these anomalies, sooner or later, we're going to add them up and we're going to figure it out. And if, I've had people say there's no way there's more than one sun because the Bible says it isn't, that there's a greater light for the day and a lesser light for the night. Well, in the translation, it is very possible that one little S missing or one little way of converting or translating a word can mean the sun as one light, but maybe the way that it works is multiple. So, it's anybody's guess, but we do know now that the sun travels in a straight line from east to west across the earth. And I do find it interesting when people say, when the stewardess in that just said the sun would go from east to west in the north, but in the south, viewed from below the equator, if the sun's at the equator and you're looking back at it, then it would appear to go from west to east, which is something I never thought about before. But now that I'm thinking about the moon, when people in the north view the moon, they see, and I've said this before, they see the little belly button of the moon. I believe it's called Tycho. I'm going to look that up one of these days and verify that and put that in my head and never forget it again. But anyway, the moon's belly button, from where I live, when I'm looking at it, it's typically at about 5 o'clock on a clock face. But I have seen photographs of the moon from the southern hemiplane. I got teased for using hemisphere last week. The southern hemiplane, that when they, their photographs, it's reversed, it's opposite, it's at 11 o'clock. And so there's a good way to show that and prove that to yourself, and that is to make a picture of the moon, put the little belly button where it is, where you see it, put it on the ceiling with some tape, walk across on one side of the room and look at the moon, it's on the ceiling, and then turn around and walk across the room and put your back to the opposite wall and look back at the moon on the ceiling, and you will see that it is reversed. So it's not like a trick. That's how it works. So it's the same way with the stars and the star trails and all that stuff. So enough about that. Lawrence, what's next?
Well, just in case people, I just wanted to reinforce the fact that this diamond shape is correct. If you look at the standard Mercator map in everybody's classroom, it was in, when I was at school in the 60s, we had a Mercator map on the thingy. And if you looked across the top, it's a square map. And looking at the map, you'd think from one side of the map to the other is going to be the same, but it's not. I mean, if you were up by Anchorage, then, it's less than 10,000 miles across, but it's showing us 25,000 miles across. So the thing is, if they could have shown the map as it really is by taking all the Mercator's, 90 degrees, intersections of longitude and latitude out, then you're going to get the diamond shape. So the diamond shape reflects the actual distances of longitude and latitude. It fits perfectly. It's not roughly, perfectly, twice across as it is north to south. And the other thing, if you look at any flight routes from places in the east, like from Tokyo, Singapore, Sydney. If they're flying out anywhere to the United States, they're always going to fly east. Then they're never going to fly to the west. So we've got a diamond-shaped map. They're flying off the map and coming on the other side. So as I say, there's only two options for it, and it's either the Pac-Man space loop, or it's one of these Mobius strips that you've been looking into recently, Laurie. I don't know whether you've got anything to show anybody on this Mobius thingy, but well, I haven't quite got my head around how that would work.
Well,
I wouldn't dismiss it.
I invite anyone to. I can't, for the life of me. I've re-rigged all my equipment here, so now I can't figure out how to get the sound to come out of a video over the microphone with the headphones, with it coming through the sound. So unfortunately, yet I haven't been able to figure out how to play videos where you can hear the sound and it doesn't blast my eardrums open. So, but go on YouTube and just type in Mobius strip presentation or Mobius strip experiment, anything that has to do with that. And you'll see all different kinds of people, not associated with flat earths so much, but they're doing all kinds of experiments with Mobius strips and also with the Klein bottle. And I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a glass bottle that has a nib on it that returns back to base seamlessly. And it's a glass blower's trick. But the Mobius strip, if you take a ride on a Mobius strip, for example, and you have a little car and you have a little Mobius strip and the little car's going like this and he goes around and then pretty soon he's on the bottom side of the Mobius strip, on the inside of the Mobius strip, and then he comes back on the other side. He's still underneath and now he's back on top. Okay. Now you'd have to imagine this Mobius strip being gigantic. It is the idea of infinity. It does make a figure 8, but it has a half twist to it and then reconnected. You just take a strip of paper and you take a half twist and put the ends back together. And one of the reasons that led me to that was that that whole kind of idea of how could God, how could the Creator, even if you are one of those people who believes in alien creators created this place, okay, even if you believe that it's a computer simulation, it doesn't matter. This concept works with all of those, and that's why I'm kind of stuck on it right now. If you understand the process, if you understand the process of how a Mobius strip works, and then you plot this map on top of the Mobius strip and just keep repeating it, because that's how it would be, like wallpaper. So now you have a Mobius strip and you have wallpaper. Now, if God can create all of the systems that operate this earth, then I don't think it's too big of a stretch to imagine that how could God be in all time, which is one of the infinity, omnipresent, omnipotent concepts. How could God be in all time on the timeline and be able to see everything coming and going? This would also help to explain how that could be. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I don't have anything to show. It's just an introduction idea that I think is an answer, a possible solution to the east-west continuous route. Besides, here's another thing, and this I just added to my montage of information today, and that is when the people talk about the international dateline and that you go across, and if you were to go back and forth across, that obviously the international dateline is a man-made concept. whatever happens, happens with or without us making this arbitrary place there, right? Now, why it was made there, I don't know, but it's the opposite of the 90-degree meridian. It's the 180-degree opposite point on a ball. Okay, so looking at a map, the 90-degree meridian is in the center, and the 180-degree would be on the two outsides of this diamond or a sinusoidal or even a globe around. So if you understand the repetition pattern, then it's very simple. You just keep going and going and going. Now, originally, when the Bible was set up for the times, for the seasons and the years and the calendar, the purpose for using those, the sun and the moon, to determine days and years was for the religious ceremonies, for the Sabbath. And they needed to perform their Sabbath rituals on the given day. So you can't just arbitrarily start changing the days, because then it wouldn't work, because it's part of the ritual. So let's say, for example, when the Great Flood happened, if you go by the biblical story that Noah's Ark landed on Mount Ararat and civilization started again at that place, which is a central location on Earth, sooner or later, some of the people went west and some of the people went east, and they just kept going. Now, when the ones that went east went 12 hours ahead, and the ones that, I may get this wrong, so correct it in your head if I say it wrong, because I'm a little dyslexic about this stuff. And the ones that went west are 12 hours behind. I think that's right. Now, by the time they would come around the globe and meet up with each other, they would be 24 hours apart. Okay, so that's where that meridian, or where that international dateline concept kind of comes from, is 12 hours one way and 12 hours the other way from the prime meridian. So now, if that happened, look what would be happening. They would have their Sabbath days messed up, but lo and behold, they're not, because they're only 12 hours one way and 12 hours the other way. When they come back, the 12 X out each other. So they're on the same day, calendar-wise. And that would not be the Gregorian calendar. That would be what is called the Creator's calendar. So enough about that.
Anyway.
All right, Lawrence. Now.
All right. Well, obviously, we've got even the big names in flat Earth are now saying that the AE map is crap. You know, they're all, you know, apart from Eric Dubai. And what I would like to see happen now is that other people start drawing some maps. Now, all you need to do is buy some graph paper. You just go online and search for graph paper. This is about 3 foot tall, or 1 meter tall and 10 meters long. It's quite expensive. This roll cost about, this is just part of it, but it's big. Okay, and it's
How
great
much
for
was that?
It was in your money. It was about $50.
Wow.
But you get a lot.
Everybody's doing everything in CAD now. Nobody's buying graph paper, so now
You won't be able to do this on CAD, I don't think. But you can, you know, as long as your eyesight's reasonable, you can plot things out precisely. So if you buy the graph paper, yeah, all you have to do is put your north and south points and your east and west points. So, you know, round figures, you've got 12,500 miles across and 25,000 miles across and 12.5 north to south. Put the 4 points on the paper, get a long ruler or a T-square. I got a T-square, and join them up. That gives you the framework of the Earth that we're on, and then start drawing lines across and down to mark the equator and the north-south, and then start putting latitude and longitude on. And then you can actually, or if you just go on any kind of search and say, what is the latitude of any place, it comes up in an instant. So you can start plotting out where these places are on your map, and then start drawing lines between them and measuring them. Now, the one I was showing you earlier, it's 1 centimetre, 200 miles. So across, it's just under 125 centimetres, which gives you your 25,000 miles across. But anybody can do this. You know, I'm no expert in technical drawing. It's just common sense. So if you know, there's a few thousand people normally watch this every week. Go and get some graph paper if you're interested in finding out where you are, and start plotting where places are and comparing it to the official ones. So on the routes that I did, got about 16 that came out exactly, and they tended to be the north, south, and east, west. So right across the equator, it was spot on, and the ones going north, south were spot on, and a few others as well. So we got St. Petersburg to Cape Town was spot on, London to Orlando, London to Cape Town, London to Nairobi, London to Giza, London to Delhi, London to Tokyo, Orlando to Santiago, Quito to Cape Town, Giza to Cape Town, Giza to Dubai, Stanley to Stewart Island, Sydney to Tokyo, Singapore to Quito, Nairobi to Giza, New York to Santiago. They came out absolutely spot on, and I would imagine on those routes there is there's not going to be a great deal of circle routes coming into effect, because it seems there are some inconsistencies in it when you start looking at it. But anybody can do it, and this is, you know, let's get some maps drawn. You know, you can. This one here, I'm calling this the 3R flat Earth map. It's still in a state of limbo, and it's on the dining room table. So when I fold it up, all the bits of paper might come off, and I might need to start again. But anybody can do it, and it's self-evident that this is the shape that the Earth is. You know, it just needs some refinement to put some land masses on, and away you go. And this is what they would actually use if you were being honest. But I think the reason they don't is A, to cover up those flat Earth, and B, you can't do 90-degree intersections, which they need for GPS and stuff like that, because these are not 90-degree intersections.
Well, it's interesting, you know, when you really start going to look for information and digging around in things, there's lots of cross-references that you can use. You know, this is the actual World Atlas website, and when you are looking for information, you just do a search on what the quickest way to find something, and look here. It's not exactly considered. This is oblate spheroid, which is what they talk about all the time. But interesting enough, if you take the square the corners or point the corners, then you have a diamond-shaped map or a sinusoidal type map. But this is on the World Atlas site, and they have all explanations about how you find all of these things, find latitude and longitude, and you just like, oh, right here. So you click on it, and sure enough, it takes you right to the latitude and longitude page. And then you just ask for the information that you're looking for, the north or west, the minutes, and so on. And any of these places, this is, it says right here, example, Paris, Texas, Springfield, Illinois, Georgetown, Guyana, Eiffel Tower. You just put that in and it'll tell you. So if you want to make your own map, it's pretty simple to find the information. And if it's wrong, you would know it pretty darn quick, because it wouldn't match up with all the others. And so they can't really lie to us. They have to give us proper information, because, I told the story last week about you giving somebody a map to your house and they're coming from 1,000 miles away. And if you just get them into the area, they're not really going to be able to find your house. You need to bring them right to your door. And that's how GPS works. It is a ground-based, uh, ground-based, blah, just
System.
lost my train of thought. It's not coming from satellites. And so they're using crosses of all these different information sites to direct traffic, to direct the world. And if flights were off by a whole lot, obviously we'd have some air traffic control problems, and we'd have wrecks, and we'd have all kinds of, issues. So the information is correct. And you have to learn to rely on using the information they have out there to adapt it to the flat Earth and to making the model and the map. And that's simply what Lawrence has done. It's that simple.
That's it. And so you could only have a square map if it was the same distance across all the way down, but you can check it out for yourself. Fits exactly and makes the diamond shape, And there's a little app on. If you just do a search, type in latitude distance calculator. All you do is you put in the coordinates of the two places, and it will tell you the precise distance between them. And you can do it all the way across. But if you want to do it all the way across, you can only go halfway. So if you want to find the distance, for example, 40 degrees north from one side of the Earth to the other, then on the first line you put 40 degrees north, 0 west, and then on the second one you put 40 degrees north, 180 west, and that will give you the distance halfway across. So you just double that gives you the distance across. The figures come out in kilometers, so you just need to convert that. There's little calculator things you can change kilometers into miles if you want, but that is going to give you this diamond shape. You can't really argue about it. So this international date line is of big significance, and I was looking at it earlier this week when Laurie pointed something out to me about she was trying to look on Google Maps to look at these places where these date lines are located, and I had a look myself, and it seems that there are military bases on the islands that are close to this international date line. I had a look at one.
Big Diomede and Diomede. I'm not sure if I'm saying the name right, but it's Diomede and Big Diomede.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I have something on that, so go ahead and keep talking.
I found one of the other islands. I think might have been Tonga, and 25% of the entire island is military bases. And it makes you wonder why would it be important to put a military base by the international date line, other than to stop people, going to where this particular imaginary place is. If it's just imaginary, they wouldn't need to be guiding it. So it must be some kind of physical object that, if you get close up, you might be able to notice it.
Well, this is also, again, from worldatlas.com. It's interesting the way the line skews going right through the Bering Strait. I mean, it's coming, let me go to the one that okay, it's coming from, this is obviously taken off of a globe because it's coming up at an angle, goes through the Bering Strait, and goes back out at an angle, and we know that it goes straight up into the Arctic to the North Pole, or so-called North Pole. But there's two little islands right here that are in this 55-mile stretch across here that are this channel of the Bering Strait. We were told in school that this at one time was connected, and that was how people crossed from the North America to the Russian Asian continent. And so, and to Europe and all the way down. And so that's how they got all the way around all over the world, people. So there, I think it's only maybe like, I don't know, it's not that deep, but they've been talking about it for years, about building a tunnel across there. First it was a bridge, and then it was a tunnel to connect Russia to North America to Alaska. And you would literally be able to, at that point, if they were connected, you would be able to drive or walk, if you had a long enough life, from South America up or from South Africa all the way up through Europe, cross over to Alaska, and walk all the way down North America to South America to the tip of South America, and connect all the continents other than Oceania. So, but now, you know, they keep talking about this, but they keep talking about this exorbitant cost and how it would just be impossible, you know, cost-wise, because the biggest part of the cost would go on to Russia, and they don't have any money to do this, and so on. And all these other roads have to be improved before it would even be feasible. So they just keep talking about it, but they never do it. And then also there is in the center, this is in the South Pacific, where this shows the pre-1995 date line, which was a straight line with a little jog in it. And it shows right here that on this side of it's Sunday and on this side of it's Monday. And it just came straight up and went past Samoa and went past these Tokelau, which is a New Zealand controlled island, and then straight up and didn't cross any land. At one time, there were, I'm not sure, I think it was Fiji or one of these small islands right in through here, touted that the international date line came right through their land, or through their island. I did see a video, some guy showed that on some little village where, look right here, this is where, you know, on one side you're on this day, on this side you're on this other day. And somehow, for some reason, in 1995, this whole thing got jiggy-jagged, moved around in this really strange configuration. And then in 2011, this little jog right here and this little jog right here changed. And according to everything I've read, it's for economic purposes. So there really wasn't any physical thing they moved. It's just an arbitrary boundary. But they were able to move it, and, you know, now if you cross over here, you're, you know, anywhere here inside of this, you're still in Sunday and all around. And then, and then same thing with here. If you're over here and you jump inside this whole little thing right here, you're still in Monday. So it's kind of weird how it's jig-jagged there. It's kind of like gerrymandering's voting districts for trying to get your candidate elected or whatever. But so there's still a lot to learn. There's still a lot to consider on all of this, but we're working on it, and we're trying to get ahead of the game. We've wasted a lot of time. We wasted 6-8 months. I did. The AE map is, and I told lots of people that I tried to convince the Earth was flat. Oh, so here's how the map works, and here's how the sun works, and here's how the moon works, and look at that. Look how simple it all is. Well, it's a little too simple because it's not true. So,
yeah, and it's encouraging, Laurie, that other people are very slowly, but they're gradually starting to look at some of this stuff. And somebody put a YouTube out the other way. They took a bit of our show and they took a bit of Gerronism show, and it was interesting that Gerronism was taking a look at the international dateline on Google Earth.
Yeah, they spent a lot of time with it on Globebusters the other day.
When they drew the line over the globe, when it got to the international dateline, it was showing some huge dip. I forget how much it was. I think it was 600 feet or something. There was this huge dip where it was going down at this dateline, which is, it's there's definitely something going on there.
It was an anomaly of the actual Google Earth map. They had the setting for the topography underneath the water is what he's talking about.
I don't remember the precise details of it, but it's obviously, why would it do that there if it was just an imaginary line, and then it should just draw as normal. So obviously there's something going on there.
Yeah, it looked like all of a sudden the topography of the floor of the ocean all of a suddenly had like a Marianas Trench in it. It just went and
Yeah.
dipped out of nowhere and then immediately picked back up past that.
So,
So there's
so we got
something a little weird going on there. And I've had lots of people send me messages saying, you guys need to get off the international date line. It's just an arbitrary thing. Well, so is latitude and longitude. It's all arbitrary. There's no lines drawn on the earth for, you don't walk across and all of a sudden see a boundary for your county, painted on the earth like you're on some baseball diamond field and, they got the white chalk line there or something. It's not like that.
I know.
Like that.
And it's interesting that you've got the poles, which are sort of out of bounds for us because they're cold anyway and they're hard to get to. And, there may well be some military presence there. But also at the end of the earth, as on the map, you've got all these military bases on and around these islands. And the one that you were telling me about, the one that's between the Soviet bloc and the United States.
Diomede, yeah.
One of those islands, the Russian government moved everybody off.
Yeah.
What's all that about?
If you go on Google Earth and zoom until you're just like as close as you can get, you'll see a little village off the corner of the side. It's like the western side of the island. I think it's Diomede. Big Diomede seems to be vacant. There's nobody there. But on regular Diomede or Diomede, I don't know how you say it, but anyway, there's on the west coast of it, there's a tiny little, looks like it's just a little fishing village, and maybe a couple hundred people live there, if that. And I scoured the rest of the island on Google Maps, on Google Earth, and I didn't come up with any other buildings of any kind or people or even tents or trailers or anything. So it's interesting that 55 miles is all that separates the east from the west, and it just so happens that the international date line goes right smack dab through the middle of it. And
I found an article the other week where they're always going to do it tomorrow, where they're going to build this tunnel or a bridge between the two. And they were coming up with all sorts of ridiculous excuses. One was saying that they'd have to build 12,000 miles of road on the Soviet side for it to be feasible. Right. 12,000 miles is an awful lot of road.
They're talking $1 trillion, Lawrence. $1 trillion to build a 55-mile bridge to connect it's just bogus.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that that they don't, and there obviously is a reason. They probably just can't physically do it because it would. All
right, so I'm going to move off to another new topic.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
What we're talking about next?
Now we're talking about this is the daylight map at Google, and it's what is this address? It's interactive daylight map, solarsystemscope.com daylight map. And it's very interesting if you look at this map right at this particular moment. And it's the 6th of March, 2016, 1922 hours. And it's based on the Mercator type map. And, prime meridian goes right down through here. And the IDL, International Date Line, is over on both sides here, okay? And this shows the nighttime and the daylight, okay? So don't be confused by this sine wave type thing, because this would be connected to this, okay? These two would be connected. And, and I have to laugh because we got so much shit for saying Pac-Man or weeks ago that I just have to, now it's almost like a joke to me because Pac-Man. And so, but what I want to draw your attention to is look at Antarctica. Look how much of it is in daylight right now. Right now. Almost the whole thing. This little part right here that's dark. But I'm sure they probably have sort of a twilight-ish effect going
Yeah,
on.
that's because Antarctica is not that big.
Right. So,
You know,
so it's not a big deal. I don't know if you can. I haven't messed around with this one as much as I've messed around with timeanddate.com, but it is accurate because I did post this the other day in the Facebook group, and I asked people to chime in and tell me where they are, and we had people from Australia, Alaska, United States, South America, lots of European people chimed in, and they said it's correct from where I can go outside and look right now. So they can't lie about this. It has to be the day and the night. Has to be real.
It's correct, but the landmasses are obviously incorrect. You know, they should be concertining in as you go north and concertining as you go in south. But the same places would be in light and darkness, but they'd be smaller up the north. And you know that Soviet bloc looks massive, doesn't it? But it's nowhere near as big as that. You know.
Well, it's pretty darn big. I mean, I've done the the research where you go in and look at all what the size of the square miles of these continents are and the area of them. And, again, here's another situation where this is skewed because Greenland's so huge compared to North America, compared to Africa, compared to Australia. And we know it's not that huge. So we know one of the things that helps us with looking at that diamond-shaped map is because you point everything in towards the top, it makes Greenland back to the size it is. I mean, that it's supposed to be. So it's that's what you have to do. You have to keep cross-referencing. But back to the Globebuster show the other day where they were talking about the IDL and running back and forth across this. See, once you get more people looking at stuff, I hadn't done that exercise yet. That was an exercise they did that I hadn't done, and that is physically take the cursor and go back and forth and, click on it to where it makes a line from the last location that you clicked on, and made a zigzag back and forth. And that's how they came up with that. Every time the Marianas Trench looked like it popped up when they crossed the line, it was almost like plotting music, a score or something, because it was so radically up and down. So collectively, this is one of those things where, everybody keeps saying, if we could all work together, if we could all get along and be, flat earth friends, then we could help each other. Instead, we keep ridiculing each other. And, we've done it because we got ticked off at people continuing to stay stuck in something that we knew was wrong, and we couldn't get their attention any other way. So we took the low road, I guess you'd call it, and became these barking dogs, bark, 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 and pissed off everybody. But gosh darn it, at the end of the day, look what happened. Now finally people are starting to pay attention. Now, of course, there are those who are never going to come along. They're never going to, because their whole shtick is inextricably tied to the dome, to the Truman Show, to that AE map. They can't admit they were wrong, or they can't admit that their model is erroneous, based in error, and they're just not going to come along. Okay, well, they'll stick out like sore thumbs come 3 to 6 months from now, won't they? Because we're going to sooner or later get enough people to take a look at this. And again, free energy is one of the places where you got started, and you pointed me to, and we started looking at his stuff. For those who have never heard us before, it's FREEANERGY. ANERGY, Free Energy channel, and he's got a square Earth map model that's rectangular square, and that was one of the things that got us started on looking at other shapes than the circle.
Laurie, Free Energy's put out a very important video this week, because you get all these endless arguments about the stars and all this false information about the stars being put out by the Zetetic crew. Mm-hmm. Let's just play the first 10 minutes of that because it's brilliant. I've got it on screen.
Well, maybe you can play it through yours, but I can't play it through mine.
We don't need sound on this because it's all got, it's all captioned. So let's just see if I can get this up.
Will you sing then or something? Chant?
Well, let's sing. Well, you can chat over it if you want to because people can see the captions. But let's get it going. Entire screen, share, motion of the stars. There we go. Just wind it right back. There we go. And then I'll phone full screen. Let's have a look. There we go.
Yeah, go to full screen. Present to everyone.
There we go. So we got that?
Okay. Yep. You'll have to say something to get it back to your screen because you didn't.
Well, okay.
There
right. So I'm trying to get Free Energy to look at the diamond-shaped map because I think all these things would work actually better with that.
As you travel southwards from the North Pole. Okay. See, you're not presenting to everyone. I could read that, but go ahead. Just start it back a little bit, and I'm going to shut up.
It's not presenting, is it? I've got to start it again. Laurie, are you there? Laurie?
Sakes. Yes, I'm muted, but you're not.
Let me just come out of that. Well, what was you going to say?
Okay, Lawrence, if you will present to everyone, it's up at the top.
Oh, right. Hang on.
Over the screen. Thank you.
Hang on. You know what? It says I'm screen sharing.
Yes, but you have to push present to everyone.
Well, where's that? Where the hell's that? Because it doesn't say that.
Now play the video.
All right, let's try again. Is it up now? Is that going to everybody now? Laurie?
Let it play, Lawrence. Just, I'm getting agitated. Let it play. You're not presenting to everyone, but if I don't talk and you talk, it will stay on your screen.
I've got to keep talking over to keep it on. Yeah? Eric Dubai, Polaris remains fixed. Well, this is Eric Dubai's information. This is all the Zetetic information. So, still on my screen anyway. This is a cut and paste from Zetetic. Anyway, where's the sound gone, Laurie? I'm gone. Screen share on screen. I've got no sound. Please hang up.
Okay, it was me. You got me so discombobulated a minute ago. I had myself muted.
I'm just going to say, if people go onto Free Energy's channel, yeah, you might want to watch that.
So let me finish what I was saying.
Go on.
When you're watching the video and you see the line that he made of the straight line of the star swirls, one going in one direction, one going the other, and they had the red line or yellow line, whatever it was, through the middle of it. When you equate that to the diamond map that you're looking at, okay, that equator is where the straight line is. And it's even more relevant on this map, on this Collignon or even the sinusoidal type map with that star spin. And it also equates to the same thing I talked about earlier about looking at the moon upside down and upside down from the two different planes, north and south. Almost like there's a pyramid over the top of us with that stuff swirling around, not a dome, maybe a hexagon, maybe an octagon, I don't know. Obviously, I do believe there is a firmament plane above us, but before I thought it was flat. Now I'm not so sure. Now I think it, might be like a diamond cut or something that allows the stars to turn that way, opposite of each other. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, well, so go and take a look at that watch all of it. Go onto Free Energy's channel and watch all of that one about the motions of the stars, because everybody else out there is putting out false info. And this Free Energy is the best mind in flat Earth. You know, he is the most forward-thinking person in flat Earth, and not one of the headline speakers in flat Earth even mention this guy. You know, they all say, "Oh, my perspective's great." This guy is the best mind, and he's totally ignored.
Well, wouldn't you ignore him if he was using your video to destroy the celestial dome?
Well,
yeah,
maybe,
probably.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Eric Dubay with the zetetic repeat, rinse, repeat Robotham stuff. You know, again, it's time to throw it out. It's time to ignore that aspect of Robotham's work from before, because he went off on the wrong path. He didn't have the technical tools we have today to be able to prove his theory. And it doesn't matter to me that thousands of years ago the Sumerians had similar models. I don't care. I don't care how many civilizations had that model. And you know, it's that whole old concept of that's a form of insanity, is to keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. If you're going to keep repeating the AE map every time the flat Earth rises into a trend, you know, in the news or in the people or in science, and every time it comes around, we go back to the same thing, and well, no wonder it keeps getting debunked. And no wonder everybody keeps going back to the globe, because it's wrong information. It's not true. It doesn't work that way. Just like the sun doesn't go in a circle. I mean, we've as much as proved that, just like free energy has, simply by things like just talking about the equatorial sundials, for example. These other guys don't talk about it. If you bring up equatorial sundials, and it's like, oh, la-di-da-di-da, now we're going to talk about, hey, let's talk about the Truman Show. And yeah, I mean, come on.
Oh, we haven't mentioned the Truman Show, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can't go through an episode without, for God's sakes, reiterating the stupidity of basing the entire flat Earth model on some movie, some fictional movie. Yeah, sure, there's probably some clues hidden in there, but it ain't that. And neither is it Under the Dome or any of this other dome stuff, or any of the domes that are all over the world covering all of the governmental and religious buildings. Let's just wrap our minds around that, okay? That alone should make you go woo and not go there. So
yeah, and somebody posted, I know it got taken down, but somebody posted on Facebook about zetetic societies, and you can go and dig it out.
If you mean that they're all Freemasons?
There was a Freemasons manual out there, and it was, and the manual was saying that zetetic societies are debating clubs for Freemasons. And most of the stuff on Flat Earth that's been presented to the masses is based on zetetic information. So it's Freemason information that everybody's banding around. And you've got to throw it in the bin. They're not telling you the truth.
Let's also talk about this one. Well, I mean, if it's up to me, we could talk about this for the rest of the show. And we have about an hour and 15 minutes if we want to take that long, but I don't think we need to. Why? The number one most repeated question by those who resist the flat Earth, even looking at it,
is the edge.
Why? And I've answered it, I bet you 1,000 times. And I've honed my answer in several different directions, depending on what the person had said before they asked that question. But I have a video on the channel that is Daniel Pratt doing a rant about, you know, you people come into the flat earth movement with your egos, and you need to check your egos at the door, and all that. And he goes on to talk about the secret societies and the, I don't know that he uses the word Illuminati, but they, them, the ones in control, the controllers. But people still keep asking why, because they can't wrap their mind around how an organization of people, a hierarchy of people in whatever kind of structure you want to call it, a corporation, a pyramid structure, whatever, can have all of these different people holding this big secret and keeping this big secret from everyone in the world. And how many people would have to be involved in this cover-up, and so on. And it's really not that hard to understand, okay? You can look at it from the aspect of religion. You can look at it from the aspect of science. You can look at it from creator versus Big Bang, or aliens made us and seeded the planet, the plane, whatever you want to call it, whether you're a globe believer or a flat earther. But the why, it seems to be the stumbling block for a whole lot of people who would continue to research if they could get past the why. So why do you think, Lawrence, that however many hundreds of years ago, somebody decided that instead of the earth being flat, which, by the way, a whole bunch of people already believe that it's flat based on their religions and their history and their culture, okay? What do we gain by uncovering this, in your opinion? And getting enough people to see that not only is the earth flat, but that it's got some possibly supernatural or mystical properties to it that make it work.
Well, if it comes out that that's the truth, then it becomes public knowledge that we've been lied to on a grand scale for 500 years. The globe goes in the dustbin. Where have you gone?
Okay, there you are.
All the science goes in the dustbin. I mean, everywhere you look now, that the science just doesn't add up for so many things. The laws of physics and all that sort of stuff. It goes in the dustbin. But yeah, I mean, so what we want from this is the present control system on Earth to be changed for one that's by the people, for the people, in the truest sense. Where government's kept to an absolute minimum just to provide basic services and stuff like that. But people, when you go out and work all week, you keep your income. You don't hand it all over in taxes that goes to some secret banking societies that store up all the world's wealth, and everybody's living in poverty. And that's the end game that I would like to see if this comes out. I mean, it's still going. People are still, learning about it at a huge rate. Why would they? I mean, did Copernicus actually do this? And then these history books could have been sort of back engineered to make this stuff up. We don't know that. We're just told that. So, how far back can you go? You can probably go back as far as what's happened in your own lifetime. That happened. But when they're talking 500 years, 1,000 years ago, and these Greek philosophers, these things could be a work of fiction. We don't know they're true. The whole history books could have been just made up to, they may do it periodically, and sort of rewrite all the timelines to suit their agenda.
And what do they gain from that, though? See, that's the why part that's so vitally important to understand. And what do they gain by this control?
Well, the one that everybody puts out is that they want us to be insignificant and that the Earth is just a dot in a vast universe. I suppose it's a control thing, isn't it? You know, they think they want us to think that we're on somewhere where you can never escape, and maybe you can't get out of this. There's all sorts of theories going out saying that there's portholes here and there to, you know, actually exit the Earth, and probably secret places where you can get out. Maybe there are, but they don't want us to know about it because these places are, you know, where all the military bases are, and they're inaccessible to the general public. So maybe there are better places to go. It wouldn't surprise me. A lot of these famous people that, you know, they all die young or disappear or get replaced. Where are all these people going? Maybe, you know, maybe these are they're taken there, you know, for their services to the Illuminati. They get to go live in a beautiful place where all the shit that's going on, they don't have to put up with that. But most people, their lives are just a grind, and you know they're just going to work to feed the system.
All right. Well, look at it this way. I must have a little bit of a track in my mind for devious thought. Thank God I don't act on any of it, or I would, you know, be one of them. But if I were a devious person and I wanted to be a control freak, and throughout history, I mean, it is proven that there have been one after another of keep making noise, Lawrence, and it keeps taking the screen. Throughout history, there's been one after another of Hitlers and Stalins and Napoleons and all kinds of people who need to control everybody else, or land, or money, or banking, or just government. And so if you take that and you add to that, that in order to keep control, you have to keep people at your mercy. You have to keep people in chaos. You have to keep people feeling lowly, beat down, underwhelming. And also, you look at the world from a perspective, if you're one of these devious people, that the world is mine, that these people are all, these humans, these stupid little sheeple, are all too stupid to take care of themselves and to run themselves. And so we're going to run the world for them. Every king, every dictator, every leader who's ever been has been that way. And in order to have so-called a global government, a new world order, a one world domination, you have to be able to control the horizontal and the vertical. You have to be able to control what these people know, what they learn, how they're educated, what their jobs are, their levels of security for that information that power is this information, and information is power. So even if you don't believe that there's a Satan or the devil or the aliens or the reptile people or the lizard ruling class or whatever, you floats your boat, that's the they that maybe they are all fighting each other for control behind the scenes, and that's a whole nother part of the story. But if all of a sudden everyone really truly understood that we live in this enclosed environment, and by enclosed, I don't mean a dome, I just mean there has to be an enclosure to it. It's not infinite. It was created, and for something to be created, it has to have a beginning and an end. So in order to control all of that, you have to be able to keep the people controlled, because if all of a sudden all of the people decided that and understood that we are free to move about, you're free to move about the building and go anywhere we want, do anything we want, and be literally free. Yeah, it'd probably be a little chaotic for a while. There's no doubt about that. But the whole dynamic changes. There's no longer global banking and global corporations, and all of this stuff has snuck up on us. Global militaries. I hesitate to use the word global, but that's what they call everything. Everything is now global, and there's a reason why that it's global, because that is all encompassing of everything we think we know. Left, right, up, down, north, south, east, west. Everybody's in it all together. And there's no getting off of here unless you have your own personal rocket and you know where you're going. So that's the control mechanism that's been put in place, that started out a long time ago and has been enabled through indoctrination, brainwashing, repeated globes in the classroom, education in it from the time you get to be 5 years old, your whole life, especially if you live in any Western country. In any other country, you're indoctrinated from the get-go with the culture. So at the end of the day, the why is always been and always will be about control. If you don't mind having other people control your destiny and control your life and make all the rules and make all the laws without your input, except through those selected people that you're supposed to think you're voting for, then if you like that, then flat Earth wouldn't ever mean anything to you. It wouldn't. You're going to be one of those people who's going, what difference does it make? Okay, whether it's flat or it's round, doesn't change the fact that I have to get up and go to work tomorrow and pay the water bill. So, but if it does matter that the world could be different for both you, your offspring, your family, at some point, where there aren't a bunch of technocrats controlling everything, banking, corporations, lifestyle, the seas, the oceans, the sky, the space, the everything, because now they do. If that does matter to you, then you're a dedicated flat earther who wants to wake everybody else up so that we can move on to the next plan, the next reality, because it isn't ever going to get any better than it is right now. It's only going to get more controlled. And you've watched it over your lifetime. Most of the people that I have found in the flat earth movement are in their 30s plus. There aren't that many young people that have become involved in it. It's starting to get more there, but they're so heavily indoctrinated that it's going to take a lot to wake them up. It'll probably be parents waking up their children instead of the other way around, which is typically what happens. So I wanted to touch on that, and because it keeps coming back and back and back, and it probably will until the day that it makes it to the point of the tipping point where there's so many more people that believe the earth is flat than don't, which I think we're rapidly getting there. I mean, I really do. And so the only way that we're going to get there, though, is that we have to do it with truth. We can't do it with phony maps and phony models and kumbaya. Can't we all be friends and just agree to agree on this one thing? Can't we just agree on something, on this one thing, the map, the model, the sun circling around in the dome and all that? Can't we just stay with that? No, we can't. Some of us can't. And once some of us find that it's a lie and that it isn't true, well, we're going to have to get to the bottom of it. And we're going to bug you until you also do, because that's why you became a flat earther in the first place. You knew you were living in a lie. You knew that something wasn't right, and you wanted to get to the bottom of it. Unfortunately, there was a plan already in place that had a nice little package all ready for you to present to you, with a nice bow on top, with a cake plate over the top, with a nice bow on top of that. And this is the flat earth presentation. This is the flat earth model. This is the flat Earth theory. Well, it's not. It's not. And so together we have to work out to find actually what it is. So that's the end of that rant. It wasn't really a rant. It's just.
And I think the powers that be, they know the AE map is in the dustbin now, so they're obviously looking to come up with some kind of new plan, because once people become aware of the true shape of the Earth, they'll be trying to think of some kind of dome or some structure to put over the top of it. And I think they've already done it, because there's still people coming out of nowhere, getting a lot of attention. And when they get mentioned by the big names, you know that they're probably out there for no good. And one that springs to mind is that Mr. Katie. And he's coming out with all sorts of fantasies, but he's put a square Earth in the middle. Maybe he's just trying to pacify some of the people who are dissenting against the AE map. But this guy's talking, oh, there's a sweet spot over at the Antarctic, but it's only a little Antarctic. And when you go through,
I haven't seen that. Why haven't you shared that with me? I haven't seen this guy.
I mean, you go through there, and that's
Mr. Cat Eye, is it?
Yeah,
Kati.
Yeah, he says the CATI. He says there's a secret passage from there that takes you to this control place over the top of the Earth, and when you go there, you get enlarged or miniaturized so that you're the same size as the angels when you get shown around. It's pure fantasy. But when you look at the comments, people think it's great, you know.
Well, you'll have to share that with me. Spell it.
It's there we are, Mr. Katie, MrCati. He's got one out. It's called The Flat Earth, Ark of Gabriel, End of Days, Ritual Discussion, Part 1 of 2. And he.
So it sounds like he's going off of, spinning off of the Book of Enoch.
He's referring to Rob Skiba's work. So we've got this his version of the flat Earth that's got all these shock absorbers around the edge of it. You're like
I did see a little
on the edges of a car. So you think, well, where's he got this from? You know, it's just
shock absorbers. Cool.
It's speculation at best. You know, and there's no evidence for any of it.
Well, okay, so
but people are buying it.
Intuition should tell you, because you're pretty intuitive, and so am I, that, you know, yes, we've made some waves. It's not just there's other people who are, you know, trying to get people off of the AE map. We're not going to sit here and say it's all us, because it's not. No, I don't want it to be. But there has to be a plan B. And there also has to be some B players, because if you have people like Mark Sargent and Rob Skiba, who put and Eric, I believe, have put all their eggs in the dome basket and the circle Earth basket, how are they going to pull back from that after all this time? I mean, look how many videos and presentations they've made over year and a half, perhaps, that have, you know, completely boxed them in to that model. And they have to be willing to admit at some point, I mean, there's going to be another tipping point here pretty soon, that the flat earthers who are already out there, I mean, there's a degree of laziness about a lot of the people who woke up to flat Earth and did get this presentation handed to them on a silver platter with a cake plate over the top, and they went with it, and it sounded good, and they didn't argue with it. Now that there's been enough information added to it that doesn't work, then don't be lazy. Jump in and start to pull apart the part that you know doesn't work, and help move this new thing forward, whether it's our idea of a diamond, or free energy's idea of a square, or somebody's idea of a rectangle. I would rather have nothing, and have a better shot at getting to the truth than to be feel like I'm in the book Who Moved My Cheese and just keep going back to the same place. Did you ever read that book, Who Moved My Cheese? I'm thinking everybody in the whole world read it. It's about these little mice that keep going back to the same place to get their cheese every day. And one day there was no cheese and they didn't know what to do. So, they had to devise an alternative. One little mouse, I think it's been like 20 years or something, however long it's been since it came out that I read it. But one little mouse just wouldn't give up. He just kept going back to the same place and day after day after day, and there was no cheese. And his buddy was like, no, man, you need to come over here and go with us and let's go on a journey and look for some new cheese place. And, it took until I think the end of the book before he finally realized that, I'm paraphrasing because I forgot a lot of the story, but the idea is that people just keep doing the same thing because they're either lazy or they're just programmed to just keep repeating the same thing. And, my mom to this day doesn't have a answering machine on her phone. She doesn't have voicemail, and she doesn't have even a home answering machine to this day. I'm like, Mom, get in the 20th century. But so we have to break down and say, okay, so it doesn't work. And what about it doesn't work? Well, go back and listen to some of the previous videos that we've made, and you'll see we've systematically broken it down and showed you why it doesn't work. Is there multiple suns? I don't know, but I know that it's a possibility. Is it a Mobius strip? I don't know, but I know that it's a possibility. Are there portals that just seamlessly move you west and west and west again, like wallpaper? You just keep rolling down the wallpaper? I don't know, but I know that we can't go back and change history. We can't go back in time. We can't alter the past. That's one of the reasons why they try so hard to destroy old books and manuscripts, and it's probably the reason why the library at Alexandria was burned to the ground. And every time you turn around, you hear some story about, well, people discovered giant bones, and lo and behold, the Vatican people, men in black suits or whatever, showed up, the Jesuits, and took the bones and put them away in the basement of the Vatican. Who knows? But if history, it cannot be altered, but yet you can't go back and change anything. But yet, if you're the victor, to the victor go the spoils, and that's part of how history works. You want to go back and change timelines and dates and people, and how did we even know there was a guy named Copernicus, for crying out loud? You know what I'm saying? Because we weren't there. How do we know that some of these tablets that they found or scratchings on rocks that have come out? How do we know? Carbon dating. Oh, well, how do we even know how carbon dating works? You just keep asking that until you don't believe anything anymore. But I'm a forward-thinking person. I remember my past, and I use it as an experience and gain wisdom from it. But the future will not be found in the past. And the future has to be the most truth we can find. And when we're on this mission, we might as well go with it. So I don't have a problem with things being maybe a little supernatural, because God himself is supernatural, wouldn't you say? And so we'll come to a point where we can either learn to explain it, or we may have to just do some of these things based on faith. Gravity's been based on faith for how many years?
Yeah, the problem we've got, Laurie, is that it's a numbers game as far as they're concerned, and their objective is to dominate the flow of information that goes out with Flat Earth. So you've got Mark Sargent and Pat Steer. They're shortly bringing out a daily Flat Earth channel, 2 hours a day. Now that's a full-time job, because if you're doing a show, you've got to, well, they probably don't, but if I was doing a 2-hour show, God, you're going to have to start looking for some interesting material. So right. It may well be like you're ringing and do music requests or something. and you'll divert flat earthers away from, because like our show, we'd probably call ourselves hardcore flat earth truth, but their type of show, you'd have to call it flat earth light, because there's nothing new coming in. They're just sticking to the same script that they started off with, and even when new information comes in, it's they don't want to talk about that.
Well, they'll either be successful or they won't, Lawrence. I mean, they'll either have listeners or they won't, and that's up to the people. They can fudge whatever they want as far as how many people are listening to them or how many subscribers they have or view counts they have. Anybody can go buy a Fiverr deal and bump up all of those things. But at the end of the day, if the people don't respond and they don't listen because they don't either like the information or they don't believe the information or they're just not interested in fluff, I guarantee that Mark would hear this and he'd say, what do you mean fluff? This isn't fluff. I mean, we have our ideas, we have our model, you have yours. Okay, you're right. You exactly do. But you can't prove anything about yours. And we've already disproved a whole bunch of things about yours, like almost all of it. And, if there's no round Earth, if there's no round circle with the sun going around, then what happened to that ice wall that's 2 miles high that holds everything in? All sorts of things start to fall apart. And
but
why is ice wall even added in there in the first place?
That's down to Robotham, isn't it? He's the guy who made it up.
When? Just ask yourself when this guy made up all of this whole.
Well, if the book's true, but the books you can get the book. Just going back to the map for a minute. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, we've got sacred geometry here because we've got this perfect shape. And when I was doing the numbers, all these numbers were like, you get to one line of latitude and then you go up to another one and it's 50% of what it is of the one you looked at previously. So you look at 45 degrees, half of 90, and you get a 45 degrees, it's half the distance across. So it goes from 25 to 12,500 miles. So there's perfect, this sacred geometry. So we've got the base of the Earth, as far as I'm concerned, it's a triangle, and it's provable with the lines of longitude and latitude. These numbers are there for everybody to get and draw yourself. You can draw the outline of the Earth. You might not be able to put all the continents in exactly as they are, and you can do it with time, but you just got to spend some time doing it. But so if we've got a diamond that's the platform on which we live, and what is below it and what's above it. These things we don't know, but people are going to speculate on this place we live and what's below and above. Heaven probably is above and hell is probably below. How you move from one to the other, I don't know. Maybe there are exit points that you can physically go.
Well, they say that's what CERN's all about, is blowing open portals or whatever. But, today I learned another thing. I mean, I've practically at my age re-educated myself about life, the universe, and everything, seems like, in the last year. But no, I would have never known information. I wouldn't have cared about that every degree of latitude represents 69 miles. Okay. Until you get above a certain number, and then it drops down to like 49 miles every degree, which is interesting in and of itself, that they literally said above, I believe, Capricorn, or maybe it's a little higher than that.
It does on the official map, but it doesn't on the What's It map. There's perfect, it's as it is on that. Those things. If you do the diamond, then you took all the skew out of the map, so you've got it as it is, and the distances is the distance it is. So yeah, when they're saying what these latitudes are relatively on the regular map, those are correct, but that's on a square map. When you make the triangle, the diamond map, then they're equal.
Well, I understand, but I'm saying they've got it down to a degree of 60 represents 69 miles.
Yeah.
Of latitude. Okay, 1 degree.
Yeah.
And so how can you lie about that? I mean, there's too many ways to cross-reference. In other words, if I'm at this latitude and I'm going to go up to this latitude, there's going to be that many miles between them. And I could find where I'm going. That's how GPS works, is triangulation. I can find where I'm going based on latitude and longitude and minutes and seconds. I mean, that it's down to a science. That part of the science pretty much can't be argued with. And that does reflect, that's what the point I'm trying to make, is that does reflect on the map that you've been working with, the Collignon map, right?
Yeah, yeah, and
So,
the map is probably an accurate depict. There might be some continental distortion, but the relative placement of the continents is as it is. I'd have to get a bigger map to do it, but the one I've got, I've put these places on as accurately as I can, and it will be possible to put some land masses on at some point. How I do that, I'm not too sure at the moment, but
well, I would think you'd be able to do it, and it's just me talking and I'm not the one doing it, but I would think that you would be able to blow up the map that you had, okay, and cut the continents out and plant them on there and see if they fit.
Well, yeah, you'd have to get one the same size, yeah.
So that's, have to get another one of those sinusoidal maps, or I mean the Collignon map, that's large enough to plot that out, or blow that one up, go to Kinko. I don't know if you have Kinko's there or what you have.
Yeah, well, I don't really.
All this stuff takes time and costs money and effort and so on. And
somebody.
I can't even say how many times I appreciate all the things that you've been doing and all the time that you've taken. I mean, we all have our areas of interest and expertise. Yours just ended up being this map because you questioned it first. But with me, it's it's other phenomenon, and probably why we keep having enough interest to keep going back and forth with this, you and I. But as we've talked and as we've brainstormed, and I'm going to address one other thing here before too much more time goes by, and that is, and you said you wanted to talk about it too. Our former panelists, our former friends who were on the show that we were doing this week in Flat Earth, Morgul's made more than a couple of hits now at us about so-called stealing Kristen's research, and why he would be the one to make the remark is beyond me, because he's saying it for her, but it's starting to show a little pattern here of he said, she said, and sounding more than a little gossipy, which I'm not big on gossip. I really don't care what other people do or say enough to repeat it to other people, but to listen to half of a conversation or one side of a conversation or one side of an issue and form an opinion and start talking about it is a little naive. And I'm not pissed off because I don't really care, but we're not here to make friends. We've said that a multiple bunch of times on the show. We're not necessarily here to make enemies either, but if there is so-called collateral damage along the way because people don't see eye to eye or agree on philosophy or theory or whatever, then so be it. If somebody wants to get mad and take their toys and go home, fine. But when you do brainstorming with a group of people, 2 or more, 2's enough, and you share information and thoughts back and forth with one another, what happens? Somebody's going to say something that they believe they have ownership of, intellectual assets, so to speak. And if somebody else in that brainstorming group hears that and expounds on it and takes off with it and goes in another direction, or even in the same direction, it would have never happened. None of it would have occurred had there not been a brainstorm start to begin with, right? So if you and I are talking and a third person hears us and they add something to it, did we steal what they added if we continue to go forward?
Well, I haven't
I don't look
taken.
at it that way.
I've not
So-
taken any. I've not taken the ball guy. I was trying to make out that we'd taken Kristen's information to do this, but the map up that I put out, it all started off with you looking at Mark Sargent's map makers for a clue, because I had in my mind, a map concertina did, and that just all came from that. And Kristen's trying to make out now that the portals idea was her, but I was talking about portals before I'd even met Kristen, and I showed her a Facebook screenshot of me talking about the international dateline late last year, before she'd even been on the show, before I'd even met her, and she was getting very aggressive towards me, so I had to stop chatting with her.
Well, here's all the rest I'm going to say about that, just so that if anybody hears this gossip going around and is at all concerned about the rest of the story, I congratulate Kristen for any brain power she invested in any of the concepts that we're talking about. She's a very smart girl. She deserves credit for having a good brain and good thinking skills. Okay. Same with Morgile and anybody else that has contributed. But let me just say this: there are people who are truly interested in pushing the truth forward, no matter who's saying it. It doesn't matter whose mouth it's coming out of. They are really only interested in getting to the bottom of it. And we have contributors who are sending information to the website, to me on Facebook, private messages, emails, the YouTube channel comments, the private messaging within YouTube. There's a constant stream of information coming in from other people. Have you guys thought about this? Have you talked about that? Now, in closing about this concept, anybody, this is called Google Hangouts on air. Anyone can do it, okay? Anyone can go to open a Google account, a Gmail account, a G Plus account, go to Hangouts on Air, push the button, start a Hangout on Air, and boom, it's just that simple. It takes no special abilities whatsoever. A little time and an investment in learning about it. But if you have an idea and you believe that you have some, important research that needs to get out there that isn't getting out there, if you want to send it to us and let us get it out there, fine, we'll try. If not, and you have, what you think is intellectual property or intellectual assets and you want to put it out there, you're just as capable of doing it as we are. So I want to put to rest. Now, if it starts up again and continues to go, I could care less and I won't answer to it again because I feel like we've answered to it. Kristen contributed thoughts, information, ideas in brainstorming sessions with Lawrence and I, and so be that. But for her to say that she owns this research is wrong, because I can go on Google, I can go on Hangouts, I can go on YouTube and find the same exact things we're saying coming from other people. We're not the only ones saying it. So there's nothing new under the sun here, as a matter of fact. A lot of this stuff is revisited old stuff and combinations of old stuff. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
And there isn't, and some of them are coming slowly around, because on that same show that Jeranism was taking a look at the international dateline, go and do some more digging in Jeranism, because this is interesting stuff. The Morgile actually asked the question about Pac-Man Earth, he seemed to be taking it quite seriously, that it was a possibility. So, John, if you're listening, don't know whether you are, because you're a busy guy putting out all your YouTubes and stuff like that, and I think he's got his own chat show now. Start take another look at what Robotham was saying, because a lot of his stuff isn't true. This bit you were talking about, the Southern Oceans are 30,000 miles across. Well, you can go and check for yourself. Go and have a look at 30 degrees latitude south. On that little thing on the internet, you just type in latitude distance calculator and do east to west, and it will tell you it's nowhere near 30,000 miles. It's more like 18,000 miles. So Robotham was wrong. He was just referring information, second hand from some sailors who said it was so far in the 1700s. It's it's not provable information.
Well, the difference between the zetetic theory of inquiry is different than the zetetic society. Their zeteticism, just go look it up. It's pretty simple. Let me just do it right here. Zetetic. Here we go. Zetetic. Okay, proceeding by inquiry. That's what it means. That's all it means. It's an adjective for proceeding by inquiry. The Zetetic Society is a group of people proceeding by inquiry. And so those are the people that we're talking about, that the society, when it was created, was loaded with Freemasons. And, it's like another version of the secret society people. And I hate secrets. Secrets drive me crazy. So if people want to have secrets and have a secret society, well, go ahead. And if you have information that nobody else deserves to have, well, then expect us, because we're going to be digging in for it. And that's exactly how we got where we are right now, by questioning everything. See, this is another one of those times when you say, well, question everything literally means question everything. And don't just listen to what we're saying, verify it. Go back through. We've showed you the paths that we've taken. We showed you how we got from A to B to D. And if D for diamond, if you don't see that in doing your own research, now, if you don't care enough and you're confident and just lazy enough to stay with the same, and I'm going to get a lot of crap for that, just even saying that word, lazy, but it is lazy. It's to me, it's lazy to just leave something laying around and to keep using it without questioning whether it's correct or not, because then you might as well just go back and be a Glober. I mean, you just might as well, because you're as far off from the truth, sticking with the AE map and model as you were when you were Glober, in my opinion. That's my opinion and my editorial opinion. Leave it at that. So, anything else?
There was that. There's a guy, you can actually go and download this if you want. It's a free download, and it's called Richard Carlisle and his Manual of Freemasonry. Richard Carlisle, Carlile, and his Manual of Freemasonry. And in that it says that, so he's talking about Freemasons, and it said they formed themselves into debating clubs known as zetetic societies. So, Robotham was in one of those. So we know that Freemasons, they're certainly not out there to do any good.
I'm looking at it right now. Manual of Freemasonry by Richard Carlisle.
Yeah. So
Manual of Freemasonry.
And
well, you know what? That's a whole thing in and of itself. Is going to check out all of these names and levels and most excellent this and super excellent that, and knights, and I mean it's I've never been in a sorority or any kind of a secret group, not secret, but I mean a country club even. I've never even been a country club member, and because I'm just a normal person, I don't like separating people that way. And if you like that, so be it. But to me, that is a form of elitism in and of itself. I mean, I'm an anarchist. I think everybody's just all the same and everybody ought to just be free and do whatever. But, well, okay, now I'm going to get crap for do whatever. Okay, play by the rules, okay? Not the rulers. And so these ideas of these secret societies, I mean, there's a perfect example right there of, you know, how do you get away with all these people being secret with each other? That's how the whole ruler thing happens. Why would you need to keep anything a secret? There's only one reason, is so that you can be superior to other people who don't know the secret. There's no other reason. I mean,
you've got a secret society having meetings about the model of the flat Earth. They put this stuff out, and it's been repeated verbatim. I mean, Eric Bay debates 200 proofs and all that lot. It's all based on Robotham, and you've got lots of leading flat earthers who are going off what Robotham is saying. It's crazy. You know, Robotham is thoroughly discredited. You know, in terms of flat Earth. I mean, it's no better than the official Flat Earth Society, is it?
If you go look at the proofs, and you go and try to replicate the proofs, like Bedford Level experiment is a perfect example. That's a good proof. The lighthouses, you know, is the same kind of concept. I did a video for those who don't like me and don't like that I had the idea to do this video called the Red Boat video on my channel. Too bad. But that was one of the things that I used for my own self to do my own proof for my own eyes. And I just happened to film it and put it out there. Okay. So each person should get out of the house. Once you become intrigued enough about flat Earth, get out of the house and go look up some of these proofs and go out and see if you can reprove it yourself. And if you can, then it goes from just an experiment to a hypothesis. And once you prove, you know, and prove it and test it again with the same results enough times, then it's a theory. You know, these are things that I'm having to relearn from the time I was in school where I didn't give a crap about any of it. I mean, all I wanted to do is get out of there and get on about my life. But now, part of me says to thank God that I didn't really suck too much of that stuff in, because I didn't get too fully indoctrinated, apparently. And it's pretty easy for me to shuck it all and say, you know, look at these other what ifs. And to question everything.
Yeah, so, I mean, the curvature is the biggest proof, and everybody's focusing on proving that there isn't any curvature, and they are proving that there's no curvature. But I think Kristen was looking at this, and she's done a fair amount of work on it, but I don't think she's put anything out on for people to watch. But what needs to be done is to start using graphics or whatever to show you what curvature you would see if it was curved, what it would actually look like, because Matt Powell's saying you can't see the curve on the curve, and you know, maybe you can see the curve from quite low down if you've got a wide panoramic view, but nothing's been put out about that. Because if I was a ball earther, you know, I'd say, well, show me, you know, you're
show
saying
me no
flat.
Curve, right? The flat earthers are
no curve.
Show me the curve, but
they'll just say, oh, the Earth's so big, you're not going to see a curve anyway. Right. But maybe you would see a curve. But people need to do the exercise, you know, measure it all out and show what you would see, you know, at different altitudes if you're looking at a wide expanse of a horizon to see what you'd actually see. But that needs to be done, but nobody's doing it. You know, you can get lots of people doing their own independent experiments on curvature, but you can do it to death, and it's some things people are just going to get fed up with. You know, like if you get people observing the International Space Station, which is probably just some mock-up in a basement somewhere, looking at it and doing 3-hour programs on it, well, people are going to get fed up with that after a while, because there's only so much you can do on it. You know, if you're going to be investing time into this, then start digging into the areas where the information is not known, and let's bring it to light. So the international date line is a big one. You know, start looking at the whole line and see what's on there, and what anomalies you can find, and see what we can get out of it.
Well, one of the wait a second for that feedback. One of the ideas that Jamie Warner, you know, hi Jamie. Wow, we're having feedback. Let me mute his mic since he just took off for a second. So I met Jamie Warner. His channel's Jamie Warner, I believe. I hope. If not, I'll put it in the description if it's wrong. He made a video today. He's very, very good at explaining perspective. And he made a video, I guess yesterday or today, that went out, and he put it up late last night, I think, and he woke up to 4,200 views on it this morning or something, which is awesome. And it showed what the ISS would seem like if it by doing a demonstration showing these jets flying by that were going like, hell, I don't know, they broke the sound barrier right in front of the viewing audience when these jets zoom went by. It showed that little poof of sound basically. And I hate to even say it wrong, so let me go look it up, Jamie. It was fascinating how much just one little quick video of the ISS travels at 17,500 miles per hour. That's 22 times faster than the speed of sound. And in the video, it shows this these planes going by, and it says you're about to see a jet going the speed of sound, 767 miles an hour. And it's like, whom, and boom. And then it was just very simple. It keeps repeating itself. But the interesting part is that when you think about the ISS is going 17,500 miles an hour, 22 times faster than the speed of sound. And that's enough to go, wow, that's fast. Okay, that's like 4.5 miles a second. Then you start to think, okay, now I'm trying to envision a cargo ship coming to bring cargo or people to the ISS and dock with it. Okay, now we both have to be going 17,500 miles an hour and try to connect. Okay, up there, and I thought, I mean, that's like trying to thread a needle, something moving at the speed of sound, and that's the kind of intellectual thinking that you have to do to question the information that we've been given for all these years. That's just one thing, you know, because lots of us don't believe the ISS is up there flying around. And as a matter of fact, we don't think there's even any satellites. There's probably some high altitude surveillance. And then, you know, you have people who say, well, but I can watch the ISS go by with my telescope or my binoculars. You just go to the ISS tracker or on you know, on the internet, and it'll tell you exactly when it's going to fly over your location. You just put your location in there, and sure enough, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go look, and I put my location in there, and sure enough, tomorrow at some certain time, it's, you know, going to fly right over my head, and I'm supposed to be able to look up there and see it, and people show pictures of it, and I'm like, I don't know how they're doing it, but they're not in orbit, because there's no orbit. Because the Earth's flat. So how do you orbit? And how do you orbit around and around and around however many times a day? So there's something obviously up there flying around as a decoy. That's about all I can call it. You know, and it's not going this way supersonic because it doesn't need to if it's not as high as the space station's supposed to be. So These are the kinds of questions that you have to just keep asking yourself. What?
If it was going at that speed, you wouldn't be able to see it, would you? It'd be just,
Well, obviously, the higher up it is, the slower that's going to appear from way down here. But still, I mean, it doesn't go over any faster than what looks like a plane's flying over. It really doesn't. I mean, I've watched people show the video of it, what they think they see. They're seeing something. There's something.
Well, you couldn't see it with the naked eye anyway, because I posted something on Facebook where you just looked at a football pitch, which is about the size of the ISS. And, these are just pictures from Google Earth. And, you just get a few miles up and it's just a tiny dot. And when you're talking about something that's not a few miles up, it's a few hundred miles up.
Well, not only that, but it's lit up. Yeah, they show it all lit up, like your plane lights you would see when you see plane lights flying over. Okay, it's not blinking or anything, but it's supposed to be lit up. Well, what's lighting it up? Oh, well, it's supposed to be the sun. The sun's lighting it up, but the sun's supposed to be over on the other side over there behind the planet. I mean, you're talking about a globe, so how's the sun lighting it up the whole way?
Well, things can actually orbit. Assuming that the Pac-Man theory is correct, because planes do fly east and west over the dateline. So, our Earth has got the properties of a globe, whether it's an amoeba strip or a Pac-Man thing.
But have you seen the pattern of the tracking of the ISS on the so-called flat Earth? It's a sine wave. It goes like this.
Yeah.
Okay? Just like the sun's light looks like it does as it goes across. So there's something up there.
And it could orbit in the same way that a plane would orbit. It'd be just a bit higher up.
But if you keep going in the same direction, how many times a day it's supposed to be going?
Oh, I don't know.
How many that if every time you cross the international date lines, the next day, and then you come back around, and now it's next day again. It's next day again. I mean, how many days ahead are they? No wonder that dude was up there 340 days. Kelly
traveling back in time, wouldn't it? If it was going around that quick. If you literally go back a day when you travel over to the east, you go back a day, and you were going around 6 times a day. Then you'd be going back in time six days a day, wouldn't you?
Well, but you can't. I don't. Well, see that's where your mind just starts going because I don't know. I mean, it's you have to really spend a lot of time rethinking about some of these things, and it kind of becomes your specialty. And perspective. Like with Jamie, for example, Jamie's one of his big things he really likes to hyper focus on is perspective. And I give him big kudos for that, because he made put some photos up one time of driving in a snowstorm, and the windscreen, as you guys call it, the windshield as we call it, and the headlights show the snow coming at the windshield. And it was very interesting because you don't think about it when you're driving in snow, because you're like white knuckle on the steering wheel driving in snow. But if you look at a still photograph of snow coming at the windshield, it's pretty fabulous to see it. It makes its own horizon. You can literally see how perspective works, focusing into the dot in the center, the vanishing point of a still photograph. And if next week I can, I'll dig that out and I'll show it to you, because it's pretty cool.
Well, Laurie,
go ahead.
It's a fact that when you pass over the international date line, going from east back into west, you go back in time a day. You lose a day. So if you could travel faster than the speed of the sun, so let's say the sun's going at 1,000 miles an hour, if you could travel faster than the speed of the sun, you're going to be able to travel backwards in time, aren't you? If you could get around the Earth in an hour, and you've already gone back a day, you're going to be able to go back another day.
Well, I mean, I guess
then you go back 2 days.
Realistically, that would make sense. I mean, how long you could stay in the air,
That's time travel, then, isn't it?
It's what?
If you could go. Let's say you're on a
you
boat.
went 3 times around backwards, Right.
If you went 3 times around it in a day, then you're going to go back in time to a previous time.
No, because see, that's where the Mobius thing works for me. It's
Well, why
gone once
wouldn't
it's
you?
gone. Once it's gone, it's gone. I'm still working that out in my head. I've watched this Mobius strip thing a couple of times, and you know, there's something intriguing about it. Now, as far as portals, if you want to replace the Mobius wallpaper strip.
Well, let me ask you the question, then, Laurie. Okay.
Okay.
You're at the international date line in a very fast jet. Okay, and
Okay.
it's Sunday evening, whatever time it is where you are now, 10:30. As soon as you've gone over that date line, it's you've gone back in a day. It's Saturday at 10:30. If you could whiz round quick again and go over it again, you're going to be into Friday.
Well, wasn't there a Superman episode like that or something?
Yeah, there was actually. Yeah, he actually went round the earth and made it spin backwards to save the
he
woman
came
who
back
fell.
in time and
He fell down the
saved
earthquake.
somebody.
Her car fell down the earthquake, didn't it? And whatever her name
Right.
was.
Okay. So the theories out there that's what would happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm interested. I'm intrigued by this time warp thing or this time portal thing or whatever, enough to keep pursuing it because, yeah, there's lots of people who would just listen to us up until the point where we said the word portal and just go, yeah, and you hear that game show music fail and tune it out and forget about it. And then 6 months later, we discover something or we uncover something or we learn and suddenly it ain't so stupid after all, is it? Huh? They probably thought that about CERN when it first got started.
Yeah, I know, but that going back in time a day is true. People have been on holiday in that region and they've gone over the date line and they've checked into the hotel and they say, well, you're not booked until tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. Well,
because they've gone back a day.
Don't get it right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's something to that, and there's something about not maybe the international dateline, but that anti-prime meridian area. Okay, the anti-meridian they call it, the opposite to the meridian. There's something about that, and there's something about that land. I don't think that land ever was there between, that Bering Strait thing. I don't believe that they were connected. Maybe they were prior to the Ice Age, or maybe prior to the flood. Maybe all of the land masses were connected prior to the flood. That's been many people have theoried about that. It was called Pangea map. That if you connected them all together in this at the prime meridian side of it, that it makes a shape like a human heart. So maybe that was the circle of the earth that is biblical, that's talked about, that got everybody started on this whole circle AE map thing to begin with, that went off in the wrong direction. So there's going to be people who are going to stick with that no matter what. I mean, they're not going to be persuaded in any way that that the earth is square or that it's diamond shaped. I mean, if you take a diamond and you tilt it 90 degrees, what do you got? And so
parallelogram.
I really would like to get with free energy and talk through some of these things and see what where his ideas and our ideas and our different research mesh or clash, either one. I would just really like to see that and like to know.
Yeah, right. Well, is the graphics that he does, they would work equally well with the sun, and the diamond shape adds weight to the 24 hours in the polar regions, because the bottom of the diamond is where the sun's going to collect. You know, it may be reverberating off some magnetic fields in, because free energy calls it the foundations of heaven.
Right.
Obviously, they're at both ends, so that would explain the way the crazy sun pattern is that you get on time and date. Because you know, if you try to model it yourself, you just have a circle around where the sun is.
The square turning into the woohoo and the woohoo.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to make any sense how that works. And obviously, someone say, "Well, you dummies, it works that way because they're mimicking a circle or a globe Earth." Well, I don't really see how that works on a globe any better than how it works on flat. So it works both, and that's kind of the key. Is if it works on the globe theory and it works on the flat theory, then that works, and let's move on to another thing that is a problematic thing, and let's solve that one. Because I feel like the sun tracking back and forth between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, and when it's at the perfect center on the equator, that's funky, because that's exactly where the diamond goes. The equatorial latitudes start to go down. Shock mount, this works pretty good. And so the idea of the stars and the sun and the how things are visible from the north hemiplane and the south hemiplane, and how things look upside down and how things spin in opposite directions, all of that makes just as equal sense on a globe as it does in this diamond. It does. So I feel very confident we're on the right track. Now, if we can just figure out how the wallpaper / Mobius / portal / Pac-Man thing works, then you know, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I invite people to debunk the diamond shape of the Earth. I'm inviting you to debunk it if you can. I don't think you can, but I'm inviting you to debunk it. Or what's the other word for it? It was like a scientific paper. It's called peer review. Or the flat earthers. We want your, you know, what do you think about the diamond shaped Earth? It fits in with the lines of latitude, the distances across fit perfectly. It's sacred geometry, twice as wide as it is high. So you disprove it. And Pat Steer's got she's talking about having a show called Mapageddon. So anybody who goes on there with a map, then it's going to have to fit the lines of latitude across. If it's not a diamond shape, it's not going to fit. So
I mean, there wouldn't be a Mapageddon show if it hadn't been for enough people having the dialogue about the AE map being debunked, flattened. So
yeah, well, I think we probably have people saying
if somebody comes on there with the presentation that we've made, so be it. That's
I don't
fine.
mind. Yeah, we're not in this for the glory. We just want to get the information out there, you know. Yeah. So, you know,
I mean, it would be a little more than hypocritical of us to, you know, make fun of the entertainment aspect of Miss Steer's show, and then go on and go, hey, you know, we need to take credit for our little research here. No.
We're not interested. No. You know, if anybody wants to take this diamond-shaped map and run with it and develop it further, that'd be great. You know, you don't need to give any credit to anybody. I mean, the idea was brought out by Caligula, you know, 140 years ago, whenever it was.
Right.
You know, we're just
1865. He made this projection.
I don't know exactly. Sorry. Yeah. He's dead now anyway.
Yeah,
we don't need to credit him.
He won't be taking credit for it. You know,
we won't be worried about it now. But
thank you, Bouvier, or whatever your first Antonin, or whoever your first name was, I forget already.
Edouard. It's Edouard.
Yeah,
Edouard.
That's so rude. To, like, say the guy found the map of the Earth and then not even remember his first freaking name. That's shame on me. So, yeah, I mean, again, send us messages, ask us questions, make us think, because we appreciate that. We need that. We're kind of pretty smart people, but we don't think of everything, and we need help. We need more minds invested in this. And if you try to debunk the map and the method, and you come up with something, please share that with us too, so that we can move on to something else, because we're not married to anything. We're only trying to find the correct solution. That's really all we're trying to find. And we probably never will. I mean, if I was God, I'd probably leave a few clues laying around to help, poor bozos like us who just have to know, why you got to know? Well, I don't know. I just have to know. I'm curious.
Yeah, all criticism is welcome, because somebody on the show last week mentioned Great Circle Routes. Can't remember the guy's name, and it made me look into it further, and it's been important in helping to understand how things work. So I'm sorry I forgot your name, but thanks for making the comment.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's the same way with criticizing other things. I mean, people criticized our sound, like right now you're rattling papers on the desk and it's coming across loud and clear. But we were having all kinds of problems with feedback. We're not professional people. We're not professional broadcasters. We're doing the best we can to just get the word out there. So I got a new microphone. See here, I got this fancy new microphone with this fancy new shock mount thing on it, and hopefully it sounds better than it used to sound. And I got new headphones, but used to have the kinds with the microphone sticking out here in front, and it sucked. And Lawrence was always feeding back, and now he's got headphones and he's got a new webcam. And so, we're making an investment in trying to keep this moving forward as pleasantly for the listening audience as we possibly can. So maybe somebody who's pitched at us before about the crappy sound, could you be so kind as to leave a comment if it sounds better today, and maybe a little thumbs up or something. That would kind of keep things leveled out there a little bit. So, okay, well, I've said all I need to say. So
we've done the 3 hours. We've done our 3 hour stint, Laurie.
Yeah, I didn't think we would get there, but
one interesting point. If you think about playing cards, you've got the diamonds, and you've got the hearts. So maybe the Earth, as you said before, it was once heart shaped inside the diamond, and when God decided to split everything up when the Tower of Babel story, then maybe the heart was shattered, and that would be the best way to do it. And if you look at the actual shape of the continents, if you push them all back together, it does make a rough kind of heart shape. So, maybe there was just one landmass at some point.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things are explained a whole lot better if there's only one landmass, like pyramids and pyramid shapes all over the whole.
The pyramids are everywhere, on the ocean floor.
And you know what?
Bosnia.
If you take two pyramids and you butt them butt to butt, what do you come up with? A diamond. So, okay, with that, thank you, Lawrence.
Yep, thank you.
And appreciate the time and appreciate all your efforts this week.
I'll try and get a picture of that map and stick it on the page. I'll have to, stand well back to. I don't know whether I need one that's going to be able to focus in and get the places.
Okay, I'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we appreciate your comments. And please subscribe so you will get a notification when our next show comes out. We'll see you next Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and free our flat Earth. Good night, everybody.
Good night.